My dear friends, a very, very heartfelt welcome to you on this semi-monsoony day, which I'm very familiar with because I'm from a country called Bangladesh, where we experience monsoons. So this is very, very comforting and nostalgic for me. So once again, a heartfelt welcome. Okay, as is our tradition, I will ring the bell, which means that we are starting, and as I always joke, you're glued to your seats, unless you need to go to the sanctuary of release, which is straight up this way. Okay, here it goes, so be ready to be glued. And then we have another tradition that we really honor all these wonderful aspects of the universe. The first one is really honoring our ancestors. Let's welcome Gretchen, who is a world traveler, just has returned recently from Uganda. Welcome, welcome.
I just have to say, it's funny because I say Uganda, and Jamal always says Uganda. And this time, when we were in Uganda, Bernard said, "Do you say Uganda? Is it Uganda or Uganda?" He was asking me, and he's from Uganda. And I said, well, that's interesting, because Jamal and I have this kind of friendly debate on, is it Uganda or Uganda? Well, that's what I said. I said, how do you say it? And he said, well, we say Uganda. But Jamal's, other people. Yeah, Uganda.
See, we represent the people.
That's right. We can present both sides of the U. So I'm here to honor the ancestors, and I want to do that by honoring my grandmother, who, when I first came to Interfaith Community Sanctuary, it felt like my grandmother's house. And I knew it was the right place for me because the feeling was just full of love, being with my cousins, playing pool, and my grandmother's unconditional love, which is something that I really feel here. So I want to honor the ancestors by just taking a moment that all of us bring in that person in our lives who, or actually, whether it be our ancestry of the ecosystem also, and just take a moment and be with that, be with our ancestry. And I say thank you. And as I say at Peace Camp, now that we have all the love and beauty of our ancestors here, the light is brighter. The light evokes even more light because we've brought it together. So thank you.
Thank you, Sister Gretchen. Thank you. And now, honoring our first people, Sister Vicky.
Makes me feel like a nun. I just want to tell you that. This doesn't appear to be working. Is it working? So we want to acknowledge that we are sitting on the land of the Duwamish people, who are one of the Coast Salish tribes. And the current, I think she's the current chairwoman of the Duwamish, Cecile Hansen, has said, "We sacrificed our land to make the city of Seattle a beautiful reality. We are still waiting for our justice." So the tribe has not been justly compensated. They've been compensated, but it's really a pittance for the land which was not their choice to give up. And if you're interested, go to realrentduwamish.org. And there's a lot of things on there that are of interest. In particular, there's a petition that you can sign so that the tribes receive federal recognition because they have not. So thank you. I'm Vicky, by the way. Sister Vicky.
Sister Vicky. Thank you, Sister Vicky. Oh, this is working, you're saying. That's good. Okay. And now, Sister Ayla for the Divine Feminine. Thank you so much, Sister Ayla. Let's just be still for a few seconds, allowing the vibrations to really go deep inside of us. Thank you so much, my friends. So today is the fourth Sunday. It's usually Sally Joe's presentation. And I'm on most Sundays here, except when I get invitations to speak at other houses of worship, churches usually. So I'm so delighted that I was free this particular Sunday. So here I am representing Sally Joe, who's actually feeling much better. She's got a cold, but you know, Sally Joe being Sally Joe, she's so eager not to spread the bad news of the contagious virus that she's decided not to come. So I want to say one thing which is for me very important. Please become aware of the different services we're having, because every week is a different kind of service. People always ask us when I travel the country, how do you do interfaith? So this is the fourth Sunday, and I said, let me write it down. What is this based on? Because we've had a lot of discussions, ministers, members of congregation, then going to different places, trying to find out the best mix of how do you celebrate an interfaith service the entire month for every single week. So this fourth Sunday is based on three principles. The first one is, and this is something which is going all across the country, we are all teachers and students alike. I repeat, we are all teachers and students alike. That's the first one. Second one is, the critical need for today is to get to know the other, to know our congregation members who are also teachers. And the third thing is, how do you do this get to know the other? You know that wonderful saying, this universe is made out of stories, not atoms. This universe is made out of stories, not atoms. We'd love to hear Brother George's story, your story. That's how we'll connect. Doesn't matter what our differences are, religion, culture, politics, but get to know the other on a human level. Okay, so here is Brother George. Please read what is in your flyer there about Brother George. But if I have to ask myself, what is it I like about Brother George so much? I want to say something with total honesty. You know, I've been here since, I won't say it again, since my hair was black, but when I was in my 40s. And wow, so many decades have passed. And what has amazed me about Interfaith Community Sanctuary, we've attracted some really wonderful people. And I don't mean this glibly. Wonderful people. But among the wonderful people, there have been some people who have been exceptional. In what sense? A person of astonishing integrity, number one. And number two, really committed, dedicated to service. You know, I get emails very often about this question, Jamal, that one quote about service, can you repeat that? Who said it exactly? I hope you all remember that. Repeat after me, if you know it. I slept and dreamt. Life was what? Life was joy. I slept and dreamt. Life was joy. I awoke and found life was service. I served and lo, service was joy. Here's somebody who embodies that. So please look at what he has written about himself. I'll take my glass off and use my third eye, and here it is. Okay. George Ramirez, here he is, was a student, a householder, a dweller in the woods. He has made it to that stage of life where he has reduced responsibility to others, a simplifying of lifestyle, and time for devoting more of life to spiritual investigation. George's years of contemplative practices, searching for one goal, did not go as planned. That's life. But it did take him to a different, unexpected, spiritual, transformational experience. With that, the challenge has been how to incorporate the understanding that came with that experience into his daily life. Please give George a wonderful hand.
Well, thank you, Jamal.
Brother George, facts are facts.
What's that?
Facts are facts.
Facts? Well, all righty, I'll accept that. So thank you all for being here today. And Sally Jo asked me to speak, so I'm going to speak, even though it's up front, I'll say it's difficult for me to speak about myself. I did some other Sunday presentations, and I was talking about something that's around us, within me, but not about me. But this is revelation. And as Jamal was saying, you know, the universe is made of stories. So this is going to be a story. So our discernment for this year, for 2025, is an invitation to create sanctuary in community. And as you know, each month we have a kind of an emphasis, and this month the emphasis is on sanctuary for transformation. And as Brother Jamal said last Sunday, this all begins with personal transformation. And I'd like to think I've experienced numerous transformations in my life, some big, some small. But in every one of these transformation, I think we all undergo a change. The world around us doesn't necessarily change, but we change, and our relationship to the world has to change as well. Whether it's simply learning to walk, starting school, getting our driver's license, getting married, being a parent, it doesn't matter. It's all requires some preparation. And then after we have that transformational experience, it takes some adjustment. So since I was asked specifically to talk about this, I had a significant transformational experience a number of years ago. And I could perhaps call it a spiritual awakening. The terminology doesn't really matter, but it turned out to be the greatest transformational experience in my life. And like any other experience, this all led up with a number of events, and so I thought I'd start to share with that. So I think it really all began in my childhood. I was brought up in a Catholic home, and I was sent to church every Sunday. I wasn't really particularly interested one way or the other about church, but I was told to go, and so I dutifully went to church every Sunday. And I didn't pay much attention to what was going on. I kind of amused myself as the service went on and just paid my dues and went. But one day, my mother got all excited. She wanted to take us to a special service. I was living in Manhattan at the time, and there was a service in one of the cathedrals in Manhattan, and it was I later on found out that it was known as a high mass, a pontifical high mass. And so we went down there, we sat in these pews, and the place was completely crowded. And I'm sitting next to my mother, and my sister sitting on the other side. And so the music starts to play, the organ starts to play. And it's a big, beautiful place, but it soon fills up with this sound, and you can actually feel, palpably, you can feel the sound of it. And then suddenly this procession starts down the middle aisle, and it was amazingly large. It wasn't just dozens of people, it was scores of people. I don't know how many there were. And they were all in their elaborate liturgical vestments. And I think there were bishops, because some were wearing those mitre hats that they wear, but then there were priests and deacons, I'm sure, followed by a whole line of altar boys. And then one of the priests was holding this stand, and on top of this pipe or stand, whatever it is, was this very large incense censer that was billowing smoke out into the whole place. And I'm sitting there, and I'm watching the procession, listening to the music, smelling the smoke. And suddenly I began to tremble, just started to tremble, and tears were rolling down my eyes. Something touched me. I didn't know what it was, but I could feel I was moved inside. And my mother looked over and saw me, that the tears were coming down, and she put her arm around me and pulled me close to her. And I remember thinking that this was heaven. And so after that, when I went to church on Sundays, I went with a kind of a different aspect. I couldn't go as far as to say I was thrilled to go, but I wanted to find out what was going on a little bit. So for a few years, I went to these religious instructions, went to church, and I got friendly with this priest for a while, and he would talk to me about different things. And I even toyed with the idea of going to seminary and becoming a priest for a while. That was short-lived, mind you, but I did think about it. But then a number of events in my life took place which were unsettling, and things were happening in the church that were also unsettling. This is the time of the Second Vatican Council, and the parish I was in was in turmoil. Some of the people wanted to maintain the old traditions, and other people wanted to rapidly embrace the new traditions. And that experiences in my life, and probably a little bit of teenage angst, I just found myself suddenly distancing from the church and from religion in general. But that left a kind of a hole. Only in retrospect do I realize what it was, but there was this hankering, this hole that was left as a result of that. And then one day, I used to listen to the radio a lot in my room, and one day I was listening to this station. It used to be called, I think it was called Pacifica Radio at the time. And they used to have all these interesting, let's call them interesting presentations on there. Anyway, one day I'm sitting in my room and I'm listening, and they had this man on there called Alan Watts. And Alan Watts was speaking about Zen Buddhism. And I had no idea what he was talking about. I had no idea what he was talking about at all. But if any of you have ever heard him, he's not only is he brilliant, wise, but he's an entertainer. You know, he's a captivating speaker. So I sat there and I listened to this thing, and he's talking on and on about Zen Buddhism. And I think all of us can experience this, you know, even though I didn't know what he was speaking. I mean, I could hear the words, but I didn't really know what he was talking about. But I knew somehow I knew in there he was speaking a truth. I didn't know what that truth was at the time, but I was sort of committed to finding out what that was. So I wanted to find out more. I thought I'd find out more about Zen Buddhism. So I went to the bookstore, and of course there was absolutely nothing about Buddhism at all, much less Zen Buddhism. And I sort of forgot about it. And then one day I was down in Lower Manhattan and was in this kind of funky bookstore. And I just happened to mention to the guy who was working there, kind of a hippie-looking guy, he was an interesting guy. And so I just happened to say to him something about Buddhism or whatever. I don't know, I'm not even sure what I asked him. But he said, well, we have a small section. And he took me over to this small section. Lo and behold, on the shelf was this book by Paul Reps called Zen Flesh, Zen Bones. So I was delighted. The word was, the Zen was in the title. And so I just took it home and devoured it. And again, very much like the situation with Alan Watts, as I was reading it, it was just going over my head. Like one of these, you know, beat poems, like Allen Ginsberg's poems were at the time to me. I could listen to him, I could hear him, but what he was saying was just going over my head. But again, I knew in the depth of my soul that I was hearing truth. So I tried to find out more about it, but at that time, there was nothing, there was no internet at the time, and there was nobody in my community who had any interest in what I was doing. And so it was just me and Paul Reps for quite a while, I guess. And then circumstances took me, I won't go into all the details, but circumstances took me to living in Japan. And I lived way up in the northern part of Honshu Island, outside of a little town called Misawa. And I used to go for walks all the time out into the woods, and about a quarter of a mile or so away from me, there was I think it was a Shinto temple, plus a whole bunch of grounds around there. And it was absolutely a beautiful place to go to. They had the torii gate, and you walk through, and then, but it was, the temple was open in some conditions, but basically the whole grounds were closed off, except every once in a while they had an open house, one day a week or something. And so I went back one time to the open house, and I walked inside, and there was a man sitting behind a desk, and I guess he could take you on guided tours or whatever it was. But so I walked up to him, and I could speak just a few words of Japanese, and everybody in there was Japanese. I was the only Occidental in the place. And I started to talk to him about the tour, and whatever I said. But quickly he spoke English and started to say, oh, he said, we do have guided tours, but you can just wander around. So I did, and it was absolutely beautiful gardens and everything. So when I walk back, I'm walking back right by his desk, and right in front of me is this procession of men walking into a room, all wearing black robes, identical black robes. And they look very solemn, and they're walking into this room, and there's a man standing outside of it, an older man also with the same black robe, and he's standing with his hands inside of each sleeve, and he's just sort of this kind of taciturn-looking man, and whatever it was, and I just felt like I wanted to say something to him. I don't know what at the time I wanted to say, but when I looked over at him, we made eye contact, and he recognized that I was there. And so I started to walk towards him, and then he turns and sort of walks into the room and kind of beckons me to go along with him. So I walk along with him, and we step into this room, and it's just a spare room. There's nothing in the room. It's just maybe 2/3 the size of this room, and all along the walls are these mats and cushions that are placed all the way around the wall. And as I say, I only spoke a few words of Japanese, and I found out he only spoke a few words of English, but one of them was sit. And so I'm sitting there, all these other gentlemen are getting in their place, and he just points to a mat, he says, he takes his finger like that, sit. So perhaps a little bit like what my mom used to do, sending me to church on Sunday, I sat. And I didn't know anything about meditation at the time. I was just sitting on this cushion. And I sat there, and my mind was racing. Just, what am I doing here? What's going on? How did this happen? Blah, 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 blah. And we sat for quite a while. And it seemed like a very long time at the time. I remember that, thinking, what did I get myself into? Because I had no idea when it was going to end. But I guess it was about 25 or 30 minutes or something like that. And then people started to get up and walk out. And so I followed them out. And when I followed them out, I noticed that the older monk was talking to the guide when I walked out. And the guide said to me, when I walked out, he said, the monk said that you're welcome to come back and sit again if you want, whenever the open house thing is going on. And so I did. So for the next 2 months or so, I went and I sat, and I didn't even know at the time what the word, I don't even think I knew the word meditation. I honestly don't. But it just felt like that's what I should be doing, and going into that, filling that gap that was in me, or whatever you want to call it. But a couple of months later, I had to go back, return to the States. Now, several years have gone by at this point, and so when I got back and I started talking to people, a couple of people I spoke to actually knew what I was talking about when I talked about Zen Buddhism. But I still didn't really have any idea what it was, except for this one book that I had. But I was able to go to a couple of different bookstores and get more and more books. It was all books. Again, there was nothing else to do. And I learned about meditation. I found books about meditation and how to sit in meditation. And all of a sudden, this whole thing started to make somewhat sense to me. And so I began a practice of meditation that I've continued up until today. I'm going to say there were times that, when there were lapses where I kind of waxed and waned when I had with children and life and everything else. But for the most part, I tried to take time out of my busy day every day to do some meditation, even if it was only for 5 minutes or whatever it was. And in that reading, I uncovered this term. And this term was called enlightenment. And everybody in these books were talking about enlightenment. And the more I read about it, the more I said, yeah, this is going to fill the gap. This is what I need. This is going to change me significantly. This is going to be my transformation. This is going to take me from a caterpillar to a butterfly. I was going to be this beautiful being that everybody was going to look at as spiritually awakened and enlightened and everything else. So through those years, I sat and even though I joined a few groups, I was pretty much on my own. And I had this, I developed in my own meditative practice a kind of pre-game process, if you ever want to call it, a pre-meditation tradition for myself. And what I would do is I would take inventory of myself. I would say, okay, I have sensations, sights and sounds. I'll take sensations and I'll put them up in this cloud. And I have perceptions, and I have images, and I have thoughts, and I have feelings. And I put them up in this cloud that would just hover there. And then my meditative practice was just to sit there and watch it, just watch the unfolding of the universe in front of me, or whatever you want to call it, whatever it is. And then one day, one of my sits, I'm doing there, and I had this realization. I don't know the words at the time, but it was something along the lines of, well, you've got everything put up there in this cloud, except who's doing this directing? Who's telling you to put these things up in the cloud? Where's that voice? Or who is that voice that's up there in the clouds? And suddenly, the room around me softened. And everything appeared to be sort of like in peripheral vision. Nothing was clear. And then it continued to soften, and it was sort of like a hologram in space, in a space that was infinite, in a space that was eternal. And I was falling. I was free falling. And it was unsettling. But then, as Rumi says, and there's a first line from one of Rumi's poems where he says, "Be helpless, dumbfounded, unable to say yes or no. Then a stretcher will come from grace to gather us up." And that's what happened. I suddenly felt caressed. I just suddenly felt this serene feeling. And suddenly, I remembered that time sitting next to my mother at that high mass and how she held me so close. But this time, I knew I was in heaven. And it was difficult to describe. I just sort of sat in that softness and that being held for a while, and all of a sudden, it's hard to put into words because it's not a realization, but it's just this sort of awareness that, unlike those other meditations, I wasn't looking at this hologram. I wasn't looking at this universe. I was this universe. I was this infinite, eternal space. And I sort of just rested there for a while with that. And then suddenly I had this realization that being infinite, the whole feeling of lack or want disappeared. Just evaporated. And it was joyous. It just was so liberating. It just palpably felt that something was being lifted off of me. And then, with the realization that I was eternal, all fear of loss evaporated. And there's this very peaceful feeling. And with this peaceful feeling, all fear of death evaporated. And so I just sat there, basking in that joy and that peace. And sometimes, it sounds as if maybe joy and peace might be, opposites or contradictory, but I realized it was just one feeling. It's just that pleasantness, and I realized that the joy was peace in motion, and that peace was joy in rest. And it was a lovely feeling. And then I just began to realize that I knew this feeling. This feeling was familiar to me. I knew that I felt it. I felt it momentarily. Every time I'd seen a sunrise, every time I'd bitten into a fresh peach, every time I smelled a rose, every time I heard beautiful music, every time I heard someone speak a truth. But this time, unlike those fleeting opportunities, this time the feeling was clear. I knew it. And now I was familiar with it. And being familiar with it, I knew that I could return to it anytime I wanted to. And I knew what this feeling was. You know, I used to keep a journal, and I was writing in my journal, and I decided, I was going to write and try to figure out what this was. And what I realized, and it was one of the biggest insights of my life, is that whenever I had this feeling, that feeling was the absence of separation. When I had this feeling, it was the feeling of oneness. I was oneness with that sunrise. I was oneness with that rose. I was one with that truth. And I knew that I could return there anytime I wanted to. It was just recognizing the oneness of everything, recognizing our common being. So I did not go from that caterpillar to the butterfly like I had intended. That enlightenment really wasn't what happened. It was a much simpler, softer experience. But I did have a tremendous transition. So I like to think it was not going from a caterpillar to a butterfly. It was more like going from a cucumber to a pickle. Because from the outside, nothing had changed. I was not this beautiful butterfly. I was just George. It was just me. But inwardly, I had changed significantly. And I knew there was no going back. This was indelible.
That's the name of your next book, Brother George.
Cucumber the Pickle. Volume 1. So I was trying to reconcile this. I was saying that I knew I had this feeling that I had, that I could recognize, this feeling of oneness. But then I also had this world going on around me of work and family and relationships and everything else, and I didn't know how to reconcile that. I just, so I came. I'm one for analogies. I'm going to speak an analogy all the time, and so I came up with this analogy, and a couple of people have heard me say this probably before, and so I apologize for boring them, but I saw myself as a bagpipe. Now, all of us probably have heard a bagpipe, and a bagpipe has a large bag that you fill it with air and everything else, but it has two pipes. And one pipe is called the drone pipe. And that has that sound, you probably have all heard that sound of a bagpipe. And that sound is continuous. It's just that one sound that just goes on and on and on and on. And then there's another pipe, and that's called a chanter. And the chanter basically creates the melody. And there you use your fingers and you make all this. Well, in a bagpipe, when it's being played, the chanter sometimes gets so animated, so lively, that you can forget there's a drone. The drone seems to have disappeared, but it hasn't. It's always there, droning on. It's just not apparent. And I saw that was kind of analogous to what I was feeling now that I had gone through this experience. That sense of oneness with the universe, a sense of being infinite and being eternal, was like the drone that was always with me. But the chanter of my day-to-day life sometimes would convince me that was not around, that was unavailable, whatever it is. But deep down inside of myself, I knew, even if I couldn't hear it at that very moment, I knew what I was. I knew that feeling now was in me, was a part of me. And so I started doing a different type of meditation. It was no longer meditation. You have to call it something else, because there was no doing of anything. It was just resting in that awareness. And ironically, the best analogy I could make for spiritual awakening is falling asleep. Because we can't make ourselves go to sleep. There's no practice, there's no procedure or whatever it is to make us go to sleep. There's a lot of things you can do to make your body more relaxed, your mind more relaxed, and help you get to that place where you can fall asleep. But ultimately, in order to sleep, you just have to let go. And the same is true with the spiritual awakening. I can do years and years of practice and whatever it is, but that spiritual transformation didn't take place until I was willing to let go of that illusion of a separate self and free fall. And then grace. It's up to grace. There's nothing that I'm doing at that point. There is no doing. There's just being and allowing grace to be that stretcher to pick me up. So sometimes I still use a lot of practices, with this analogy of falling asleep. I tend to use chanting a lot of times as a kind of soporific, to put my ego to sleep, let it sort of rest for a while. But there's a lot of practices that I still use like that. But most of the time, it just would be resting in this field of awareness. I borrowed that sense from somebody else that I've read, but it really is apt. Not a field the way like a field that a farmer plows, not that kind of field, but a field like magnetic field, a gravitational field where there's no edge, there's no boundary, there's no limits. It's infinite and goes on and on and on. And so I could rest there in the knowing that I too was infinite and eternal. But as Jamal mentioned when he was reading that thing, the big key now is how to reconcile everything. How do I incorporate this new understanding that I had of myself into my daily life, into my activities, into my relationships? And I come up with this other analogy. I try to find out how I fit into the world. And the one that came up to me was that I was living a life of improvisational theater. Now, I did improvisation for a while, and I found it great. And the number one rule in improvisation, the first rule they teach you is yes and. Because the way improvisation works is you go into, you participate in the activity, and you contribute. The first thing you do is say yes. You don't resist what's going on. You don't try to deny what's going on. The first thing you do is say yes, and then figure out what to do next. So that's basically how, in simple words, I've tried to live my life these days. It's a recognition that, as in improvisational theater, everything is a result of what somebody else does. It's all an interaction. There's no initiation, really. It's just a constant flow and a building upon and a responding to other people. And That's basically what I do, as simple as it sounds like that. And then my simple goal in life is to try to make my fellow actors, my fellow players, as successful and as happy as I can. And that's something I try to live by. I'm not always successful with that, mind you, but it's at least a goal to set. So perhaps I'm thinking of our discernment. You know, maybe that's my doing my little bit to try to transform society. And then I also found that I could return to religion. I could to that which I kind of found myself disillusioned to as a child. But when I came back, it wasn't not to join any particular religion. I wasn't looking to join a religion. You know, in my opinion, the world doesn't need more Christians. The world doesn't need more Buddhists. The world needs more Buddhas, and the world needs more Christs. So I borrow from these different traditions, though. I look at these different religions, and I glean from them insights and spiritual practices that I can use to help me with doing this reconciliation, to how to incorporate these new ideas into my life. And one of them is sitting in silence. People know, anyone who knows me, that's my thing, as it were, sitting in silence. And it's that I mentioned what it was before. And another one that I practice, and I'm using it more and more and more these days in our political world that we are in today, and that's the practice known as Tonglen. And I've used it here before, and I know some of you know this practice. It's a regular practice of the Dalai Lama. He's known to practice it on a regular occasion. And it's been popularized in the West by the Tibetan Buddhist nun Pema Chodron. And you know, we've done it. I tried to bring it here a couple of times, but I thought today we could use this practice of Tonglen so that each of us could become a sanctuary for transformation for those who are suffering in our community. So this practice of breathing out and breathing in, it helps us to get in touch with those obstacles that can prevent us from expressing our innate understanding and caring. So if you're comfortable with this, maybe you could allow me to guide you again to very briefly through this practice known as Tonglen. So if you will, just sit back, be at ease, but alert. Close your eyes and settle in. So begin by just simply breathing in and breathing out. Now begin to focus on your breath. As you breathe in, be present with breathing in. As you breathe out, be present with breathing out. Acknowledge thoughts and emotions as they arise, but try not to attach to them. Let go of them as you will, and then return, when you can, to connecting with the breath. When exhaling, imagine breathing out into vast open space, words that express feelings of loving kindness. Words like, may all beings be happy, may all beings be healthy. And with each of your out-breaths, repeat words like these, or whatever simple words of your own you choose that can express your innate compassion, your desire to help alleviate the pain and suffering of others. Now, take a minute and visualize someone you know who is suffering, someone you would want to help. It can be someone you know personally, or it could be someone, or even some group of people whose situation you've only heard about. But choose whoever suffering looms large in your compassionate heart at this moment. Now, link an intention to your breath. As you breathe in, be mindful of the energy of pain that you observe in your chosen person or persons. Bring clearly to mind the way in which you feel their suffering. Breathe in their pain with the intention of relieving them of that suffering. We don't take on or own the other's discomfort, we feel it. We feel it intently. The only way to fully alleviate suffering is to feel it. But then, as we allow it to pass through our compassionate heart, that dark discomfort of pain is transformed and breathed out as the light of loving kindness. As you breathe out, your compassionate heart radiates soothing, gentle light beams that touch, reassure, and comforts them. Visualize sending this person whatever it is you feel they need to ease their suffering. Breathe that healing energy out towards that individual and out into the world. And as you breathe out, see them become confident and happy, cared for and loved. Breathe in, breathe out, and visualize the relief you are sending and allow it to touch your heart. Continue to hold this person you have chosen in your awareness, or you can expand that circle of goodwill. The scope of your imagination is your only limit. So we breathe in the darkness of their distress, breathe out happiness and the light of freedom. Allow your heart's natural goodness to shine unresolvedly and touch the world with its grace. finally. Relax again into open mindfulness and sit with that for a few more minutes. As you breathe in, be present with breathing in. As you breathe out, be present with breathing out. Thank you. And now I turn it back over to Brother Jamal.
Brother George, we thank you for your genuine, heartfelt expression and articulation. So let's just again be quiet just for a few seconds and drink in what Brother George has expressed, and just to explore what splashes in your heart from what Brother George has said. And while you're doing that, a beautiful music from Sister Ayla. and just being with that in silence. Thank you so much, Sister Ayla. And now comes time for sharing. You know, as I was walking up here, I was just thinking, I think it was in 1998, the first time when we got possession of this building. Believe me, this place was packed, even people flowing out the doors. We had so many people who had attended the very first service. But what I remember was, it was so difficult for us to ask for money because we had never done that before. And I fumbled and I misspoke some words. But we had the largest collection, over $2,000 that particular day. But now we become shameless, actually. So we have a standard text. We say, we are so grateful for your contributions, but we really mean it sincerely. And we pray that whatever you donate to us will be returned to you many, many, many-fold. And to those online, we have, please check our website. We have a QR code if you want to donate, but if you don't mind just passing this around. And once again, please know we are deeply grateful for any contributions. It doesn't have to be money. In your prayers, in your contribution of service, we take that to heart and are very thankful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Joy. Once again, deeply grateful for your contributions. And now it's time for our upcoming gatherings. Maybe we want to start with the retreat, Joey, that we are having.
Good morning. I would like to remind everyone that a week from today will be our membership retreat. And it will be held immediately following the service. We'll have a lunch that will be provided to everyone. And then we will gather and participate in activities that will strengthen our community. That's the goal. So we'd really love to see you there. We want your input. We want to grow and be strong and healthy. And the only way to do that is to check in with our members and get their feedback and hear what's springing up from their heart. So please come. We'd love to see you there. Thank you to those who have RSVP'd. And if you have not yet RSVP'd, please do so by today. We want to make sure we have enough food and supplies for the activities that we will be doing. So we hope to see you there.
Thank you so much, Joey. So we have several other programs, two major ones. One is on March 27th in the evening at 6:30. It's called Night of Destiny. You know, this is the month of Ramadan, a holy month for Muslims. And why is it holy? Because it was in this month that the first revelations of the Quran was descended upon Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when he was meditating in a cave in Mecca. We don't know on which day of the month it actually happened. So Muslims, towards the end of the month when Ramadan is happening, they celebrate, and we are celebrating by having what is called a Night of Destiny. Muslims are invited, non-Muslims are particularly invited. We'll have a brief program, myself, Ann Holmes Redding, and then a lot of good food downstairs and prayers. So all of you are invited. Thursday, March 27th at 6:30. And by the way, last night was a wonderful program where, also sponsored by us, where we Muslims and our Jewish friends, the synagogue, Kadima, got together with some other organization. I think there were like 80, 90 people. It was just fantastic because we shared not only good food, but wonderful conversations and realized that, you know, the way out of this terrible problem of animosity, polarization, is really to get to know the other on a human level. And we heard one another's stories, whether it was about the pain and anguish in Gaza or in Israel. And we began to realize at a heartfelt level, we all have a story. We just need to truly share a heartfelt connection. So along those lines, you've heard this several times, a wonderful program developed by Rice University called Amazing Faith, where they said the main problem we have, where we are not able to connect with the other, move beyond our polarization, is the fact that, Brother Jamal, you're a nice guy, but you don't really listen. If only you learned the art of authentic, sincere listening, things would change. So this is a program. This is called Interfaith Dinner. This is happening on April the 5th at 5:45, 6 o'clock maximum, to arrive at Unity of Linwood. We're having this wonderful program where people have dinner. By the way, it only costs $5 just to reserve your spot because the seating is limited. But all it is people sit together in different tables, circles, maybe 8 people at the table or 6 people, and there's a pile of questions in the middle. And let's say I'm there, I'm eating dinner, everybody's quiet, I pick a card, it has a personal question. Like, was there a time in your life you forgave someone? How did it feel? Nothing about politics or ideology or religion in a sense of theology. Personal question. And why is it so why does it work? Because as I'm speaking, others are listening. And why are they listening? Because when it comes to, let's say Joey sitting next to me, she's picking a different card which has a different question. So normally when, if it's the same question, or if Joey's speaking, it's the same question I've got to answer, I'm not really listening to Joey. I'm already formulating my own answer. So this is just a simple idea of really listening. It has been found through research, by doing this, people really get to know the other on a human level. And no matter what the difference is, whether it's religion or politics or culture or race, it becomes impossible, inconceivable to demonize the other. Our differences still remain, but it becomes impossible to demonize or dehumanize. That's why it really works. So we have teamed up with Unity of Linwood, Center for Spiritual Living, St. Joseph's, and Nirankari Mission. So please join us in this program. So I've got flyers for both of these. And of course, we have lots of other programs that happen in this building. Silence. Do you want to say something about silence? He's the master silence person.
I would love to. Yeah, but this is an invite to join us here each Thursday. That we just get together here and do exactly what it says, is to sit together in silence. And I won't go and make a big deal of it, but it's not a prescribed sort of methodology. It's not a particular type of meditation. You can come to it with whatever background you have, whatever intentionality you have, and just sit with others and share the silence. Thank you.
And Sister Ayla?
I want to invite everyone this coming Friday, 7 p.m. in this room. I'll be offering an evening of healing music, and not only chanting, but some healing instruments that I have, crystal harp and my Tibetan bowls, various instruments like that. So we start the evening with some gentle movements, maybe a little simple visualization. Then I'll chant, and you can make your way to a comfortable seat, or you can lie on the floor on a mat with a blanket and a pillow. And then we'll come back to our bodies at the end. It lasts about 2 hours, up to 2 hours. So 7 o'clock on Friday. Yeah, thank you.
And this cosmic chantress has been doing this for years. And I want to thank you so much. Please give her a hand. She's been doing this for years, actually. I see Brother Chris here. And Brother Chris, I've known you for what, over 20 years? Is it 20 years now? Doing Course in Miracles. in this place here. My hair has grown white. I think he has lost some hair. Say a few words about
I wish I had more white hair. Course of Miracles, actually, Dorothy over there is doing it as much as I am, and she is doing it online on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays, as a bunch of people are, and then we meet here on the 1st and 3rd Tuesdays as well. And yeah, if you want to talk to me or Dorothy afterwards, you can ask questions about it, but anybody's welcome.
Thank you, Brother Chris. And we have many more programs. You know, for example, we have I'm kind of tell you how proud we are. We have, over 20 years, we've had Native American programs here. In fact, twice a week. So please look at the website. We have wonderful classes, events, and they're all listed. Okay, my friends, yes.
I would just like to take a few minutes, so sit tight for a second. We have some people to thank. This last month, we have done a spring cleaning here at Interfaith Community Sanctuary. And we had people that showed up and did everything from take the globes down here and wash them, to installing a cable management system along our floor, which was desperately needed, to cleaning bathrooms and consultation rooms and the altar. It was lovely to see people come together and to really put some elbow grease and some love and TLC into this magical building that we come to every Sunday and many days in between. One day, as I was in the consultation room, I opened the closet door in there, and there was this stuff on the inside of the door and on the casings there, and I was scrubbing away at that to get it to go away. And it came to me, she knows. She knows. This building knows that we are paying attention and that we are caring for her. I'm just so grateful to the people who showed up to help. So I want to name them, and I hope I don't miss anybody. George. And as a matter of fact, George grabbed me before service today and said, Joey, I can't come next Saturday at 10 o'clock, but if you want to give me something beforehand, I can do it before. George, thank you. We are, just so you know, we've done the first 4 Saturdays, and so phase 1 is kind of done. We'll pick it up maybe in the fall. Need to focus on landscaping now, but anyway, so George, thank you. And Vicki, thank you. Vicki is going to be doing some hemming of some curtains for Jamal's area in there, so thank you for that. Steve, who's not here today, is going to go through, we have this, the furnace room, which is filled with all kinds of paint cans from years of painting in the building. He's going to go through that all and cull it out and take care of all of that in the next month or 2 when he has time. Nora Grace, thank you. She went around all the railings in here, dusted them all, cleaned them all off, cleaned this alcove here that was full of spider webs and just years of grime. So thank you. Zach took that crazy table back there that we are appreciative of, but a lot of us go, huh, what's going on back there? He took all the cords and managed them all and got it to a place where we could actually put the cord management system in place. So, Zach, thank you very much for that. Sally Joe, who's not here today, she cleaned the entire altar, used that yummy wood stuff that you put on and polished it all up and just paid honor to our altar. Jamal was here, and he helped actually go through the contents of that altar to make sure that what's in there is really representing us as a congregation today. And then also in the consultation room, we went through all the books in there and the contents of that and made sure that, yep, everything is good to go, and things that don't need to be there were removed. Mary came and helped clean some in the consultation room. Thank you. And then yesterday, 2 little angels who are brand new to our congregation came. Leah and her husband, I don't remember his name, but he's only been here 3 times. And they were here for like 4 or 5 hours yesterday. They're the ones that actually installed this cable management system. And we built some shelves downstairs, some storage shelves down there. They put that all together for me yesterday. So they were just like angels straight out of heaven. So thank you to them as well. So all that said, we are thankful to these people who have contributed their time to this sanctuary. She knows. She knows. Lastly, I know I'm taking a lot of time here, but I just feel so heartfelt about this. We gathered contents from this place that have been deposited here over the years and held some significance at one time or another, but maybe are no longer serving us. And so they have all been placed on tables downstairs in the fellowship hall. And at the next guiding council meeting, we will have those organized so that folks can look through those items and tell me if there's something there that, oh yes, we definitely need to keep this, I need to know that. And we'll make sure that it gets put back in place where it needs to be. Other than that, items will be available for people to take home if they wish. And then beyond that, off to Goodwill to their next home so that the next folks can enjoy them. So let's give a big hand of applause to all the people who participated in this month.
She forgot to mention herself. None of this would have happened had Joey not noticed what needed to be done and put the word out and made the ask. So I want to thank you, Joey.
We really want to thank this supervising angel who has taken up so much of responsibility, and also so efficient, very efficient angel. Thank you for giving a wonderful hand. And thank you for really being one of those who are so dedicated and committed to the beautification, maintenance of this place, besides other things that you do also. Thank you. Okay, my friends, time is passing. To those wonderful people on internet, please tell them all sayonara, goodbye, salam, shalom. Thank you so much for being there, and we'll close the